I know that weight is a very sensitive issue, especially around pregnancy. And we know that weight has so much more to do than just calories in, calories out. We know that there's a strong genetic component, so if you think about your size to the rest of the size of your family, you're probably a similar weight, or at least you have a genetic predisposition to be a similar weight. We also know that there are lots of hormones involved, hormones that control someone's metabolic rate, where they store energy, how much energy that they store, as well as hormones that control appetite. So there's a hormone called ghrelin that controls how hungry someone is all the time. So if someone has a higher level of ghrelin, they're going to be hungry, they're going to have that drive for food more often than someone who has the appropriate amount of ghrelin. There's hormones that control how full we feel, or our satiety level. So when our stomach expands and we get nutrients into our bloodstream, some of these fullness or satiety hormones go up to our hypothalamus in our brain to tell us that we're full. If someone doesn't have enough of those satiety hormones, then they're not going to feel full after an appropriate portion size of food, and they're going to have that drive to keep eating and have larger portion sizes. We also know that two people can eat the exact same food and have the same level of activity and actually be very different weight. There was another study that was done that measured how much energy people need to maintain their weight, and then in the study they gave these people an extra 1,000 calories a day. And throughout the study, some people gained only less than 2 pounds and other people gained more than 10 pounds. So it's really very different based on your metabolism and hormones about how much weight you can store. So I very much get that this is a lot harder for some people than other people, but we also know that if someone gains more than the recommended guidelines during pregnancy, that it puts their baby at risk of being large for gestational age, or over 4 kilograms or 9 pounds, which is associated with a higher risk of childhood obesity and type 2 diabetes later in life. There's also a lot of misconceptions out there about weight gain for pregnancy. I know, we used to say, or I guess I'm too young, but, in the previous generation, they used to say that you needed to eat for two. And now I think most women know that you don't actually need to eat for two, especially in those, first trimester when your baby is the size of a little pea. It's not very big. You don't actually need twice the amount of energy, but society still puts a lot of pressure on pregnant women to eat extra food and unhealthy foods. People often show their love in the form of food, so bringing, whether it might be extra treats or it might be dinners, but definitely people socialize around food. Food is very cultural, very emotional, and when you're pregnancy, this is even more so true. I was actually really surprised when I was pregnant at the amount of pressure put on me to have sort of extra foods that I wouldn't normally have. I mean, from your parents or your grandparents, bringing extra desserts over, to being out at a restaurant and, the server or the waitress making a comment like, oh, you're pregnant, you can have a little bit extra, or, other people said, oh, well, you're not drinking, so now you can eat extra. And so very much not that necessarily the idea of you get to eat double, but definitely society has this idea that you get to eat more, and not necessarily more nutrients, more calories. And it's actually more nutrients. We want double the amount of nutrients. We don't actually really need that many extra calories at all, especially if we're starting, if we have a little bit of extra weight, we really don't need that many extra calories. Following is a table with the current guidelines for recommended weight gain in pregnancy, and the guidelines are based on what your pre-pregnancy BMI was. So if you have a higher BMI to start with, then you actually don't need to gain as much weight during your pregnancy. In the worksheet, I also included a table so you can track your weight by trimester. So the table shows, based on your pre-pregnancy BMI, how much weight you should gain in the first trimester, and then in the second and third trimesters, how much weight you should gain per week, so that you know you're on track to gain the recommended amount of weight by the end of your pregnancy. So it's a good idea to track your weight during your pregnancy, and if you're below or above the recommended guidelines, it would be a good idea to track your food intake and your activity, and you can go and see a dietitian or a healthcare professional to get some individualized recommendations.